Ladies and gentlemen, every human being in this room has felt that moment when emotions take the wheel. When anger boils, fear paralyzes, doubt whispers, and you do something you later regret, or worse, you do nothing at all. We've all been there. Some of you are there right now. You woke up angry at your life, disappointed in your results, maybe jealous of someone else's progress, frustrated that you haven't gotten what you think you deserve. You're not alone. But let me tell you something that very few people ever understand. Mastering your emotions is not about suppressing them. It's about commanding them. It's not about becoming a machine. It's about learning how to drive the machine you were given. See, your emotions are biochemical storms. They're electrochemical messages sent from your limbic system, the emotional center of the brain, to every cell in your body. When you feel fear, it's not some poetic concept. It's your amygdala firing signals through your nervous system, flooding your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. When you feel anger, it's not just a mood. It's your hypothalamus releasing a cascade of hormones that prepare you to fight. Your heart rate increases, your pupils dilate, blood rushes to your muscles. Your body is literally preparing for war. Every emotion you feel has a purpose. But here's where most people fail. They live at the mercy of these biochemical storms instead of learning how to navigate them. You see, emotions were never meant to control you. They were meant to inform you. They're indicators, not dictators. But the tragedy is, most people never learn that distinction. They're raised in environments where emotion is either suppressed, don't cry, don't feel, don't show weakness, or glorified, just follow your heart, do what feels right. Both are wrong. Both destroy potential. Because neither teaches you how to interpret emotion as data. I'll give you an example. A professional fighter doesn't enter the ring without adrenaline pumping through his body. Fear is present. Excitement is present. But he doesn't say, I'm scared, I can't fight. He channels that energy into movement, focus, and precision. He's trained his nervous system to use emotion as fuel, not as an excuse. That's mastery. And the same principle applies to every area of life. Whether you're negotiating a business deal, repairing a relationship, or trying to change your body, emotional control is the foundation of all execution. Let's talk about what really happens in your brain when you lose control. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, planning, and judgment, literally shuts down under emotional overwhelm. That's why people say and do stupid things in the heat of the moment. They're not thinking, they can't. The emotional brain hijacks the rational brain. The moment you're triggered, your body goes into survival mode, and everything becomes about defense. Your brain is not asking, what's the best move? It's asking, how do I protect myself? That's why emotional mastery is not optional for anyone who wants to lead, build, or create something meaningful. Because if you can't stay calm when chaos erupts, you'll always be a victim of circumstance. Now understand this, emotions are contagious. Walk into a room full of anxious people and your nervous system mirrors theirs. That's neuroscience. It's called emotional contagion, and it's been proven through countless studies in social neuroscience. Your brain literally synchronizes with the emotional states of people around you through a network of mirror neurons. That's why leaders who lose their temper infect their teams with fear and paralysis. And that's also why great leaders radiate certainty, calm, and confidence, because they master their emotional broadcast. They don't just manage people, they manage their own state, which manages everyone else's. But let's get something straight. Mastering emotion doesn't mean you'll never feel pain, fear, or anger again. It means those emotions stop dictating your behavior. It means you become aware of them as they rise, and you decide how to use them. You're not at the mercy of chemical impulses anymore. You're in charge. You can turn fear into focus, anger into drive, sadness into reflection, and doubt into discipline. When you understand emotion as a signal, you stop fighting it and start decoding it. For instance, fear is not your enemy. It's your compass. Fear points toward growth. Every time you feel fear, it's a signal that something meaningful lies on the other side. But most people retreat when fear shows up. They misinterpret it as danger when it's actually direction. And that's how mediocrity multiplies. People keep walking away from the very things that could make them stronger. Let me give you a real life example. Years ago, I worked with a client who had everything: money, influence, talent, but he couldn't make decisive moves. Every major opportunity that came his way was lost because he hesitated. His fear wasn't about failure. It was about judgment. He was terrified of being criticized. So every time emotion spiked, his brain froze. He'd analyze every detail, question every motive, wait for the right time, which never came. When we looked deeper, we found out that this pattern started in childhood. He had a father who punished mistakes brutally. His nervous system had learned that action equals pain. That's how emotional patterns are built, through repetition and association. Once he became aware of that, he learned how to interrupt the loop. He practiced feeling fear without obeying it. Within 6 months, he made decisions he'd avoided for years. His entire life shifted because he no longer let emotion steer the ship. That's the power of awareness. You can't master what you refuse to feel. You can't control what you don't understand. Awareness is the doorway to command, and command is built through repetition. Because your emotional patterns are neural patterns, literally pathways in your brain. Every time you react the same way to stress, you're reinforcing those neural highways. If you explode every time someone disrespects you, you're training your brain to normalize anger. If you retreat every time something scares you, you're wiring avoidance. But if you consciously choose a new response, repeatedly, you rewire the pathway. That's neuroplasticity in action. Your brain rewires itself based on experience and intention. Emotional mastery is a neurological skill, not a personality trait. Now, let's talk about the myth of emotional authenticity. Society today tells you to just be yourself, express your emotions, don't hold anything in. But what if yourself is undisciplined, reactive, fragile, or addicted to drama? Should you still express that? Of course not. Authenticity without mastery is chaos. It's self-sabotage dressed as self-expression. True authenticity comes after discipline, when you can express emotion intelligently. That's what separates professionals from amateurs. Amateurs express emotions impulsively. Professionals express emotions strategically. One destroys relationships, the other builds empires. You want to know why most people never build mental toughness? Because they never sit in discomfort long enough to outlast the emotional storm. The second stress hits, they reach for escape, scrolling, eating, drinking, blaming, avoiding. Emotional escape has become the modern epidemic. The moment life gets hard, people outsource their self-control to distraction. But here's the brutal truth. You can't escape emotion. You can only delay it. Whatever you suppress today will resurface tomorrow, stronger and sharper. And so mastery begins when you stop running. When you stop labeling emotions as good or bad. When you realize they're all tools. Raw energy waiting to be directed. Anger is just energy. Fear is just energy. Even sadness is energy. The only question is who's in charge of where that energy goes. You or the emotion itself. When I was studying human behavior, one of the most profound discoveries was this emotional control directly predicts success across every field. CEOs, athletes, artists, surgeons, soldiers. The ones who thrive are the ones who remain composed when everyone else is panicking. They don't let adrenaline make their decisions. They use it to sharpen their awareness. Because when you can stay calm under pressure, your brain accesses higher order thinking. You see possibilities others can't. You make moves others fear. That's not talent. That's training. And this training begins in your everyday life. Emotional mastery doesn't start in crisis. It starts in small moments. When traffic jams, when someone disrespects you, when plans fall apart, those are your practice grounds. Every time you pause before reacting, you're strengthening your prefrontal cortex. You're literally training your brain to keep you in command. It's like building a muscle. Stress is the weight, awareness is the form, and composure is the strength you gain. But too many people want mastery without pressure. They want calm without chaos. They want peace without pain. That's not how it works. You can't build emotional strength in a vacuum. You build it in the fire. You build it when your mind screams, run. And you say, no, we stay. That's when you meet your true self. Not the one you show the world, but the one you discover in silence, when no one's watching and you're forced to deal with your own storm. And let me tell you, that storm is where transformation happens. Because emotions are not obstacles, they're invitations. Every emotion you feel is an invitation to understand yourself more deeply. When you're angry, it's a signal something feels unjust. When you're sad, it's a signal something meaningful has been lost. When you're afraid, it's a signal you're about to grow. The problem is, most people answer none of those invitations. They slam the door shut and call it staying strong. But strength is not the absence of emotion. It's the presence of control within emotion. Now, some of you sitting here might be thinking, that sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do it? How do I master emotion when life keeps hitting me? I'll tell you exactly how, but not through magic or motivation, through mechanics. Emotional mastery is mechanical. It's trainable. It's biochemical and neurological. And it starts with awareness, breath, and meaning. Because the moment you control your breath, you control your physiology. The vagus nerve, a major bridge between your brain and your body, calms the nervous system when you breathe deeply and deliberately. That's not spiritual, that's science. Slow your breathing and you lower cortisol. You restore oxygen flow to the prefrontal cortex. You literally give yourself back the ability to think. That's why every warrior tradition, from samurai to special forces, trains breath before battle. Because emotional regulation is not about being fearless, it's about being functional within fear. And then comes meaning. You can't master emotion if you misinterpret it. Most people give emotions destructive meanings. I'm angry, so I'm bad. I'm scared, so I'm weak. I'm sad, so I'm broken. No, you're not broken. You're alive. The same chemistry that makes you feel pain makes you capable of love, connection, creativity, and growth. The spectrum is one. You can't numb one side without numbing the other. When you embrace emotion as a tool, you access the full human experience, and that's where real strength lies. When you begin to see emotions not as threats, but as teachers, everything in your life begins to change. You stop fighting your inner world. You start listening to it. Because emotions, when mastered, become the greatest intelligence you possess. They are the bridge between biology and consciousness. They are the language of your subconscious mind. And if you learn to read that language, you can rewrite your entire story. Let me tell you a story about a surgeon I once studied during my years consulting for performance research. This man operated on human brains for 16 hours straight. Precision. Focus, life and death in his hands. I asked him once, how do you stay calm when you know one small mistake can end a life? He smiled and said, because I practice staying calm when it doesn't matter. Think about that. Emotional mastery isn't born in the moment of crisis. It's forged in the thousands of tiny, invisible choices you make when no one is watching. When you choose patience over irritation. When you choose reflection over reaction. When you choose composure over chaos. That's where mastery begins, in the silence of your daily discipline. Every emotion you experience builds or breaks your future. You're either reinforcing control or surrendering it. And the scary part, you teach your nervous system every day who's in charge. You or your emotions. Most people live in reactive mode their entire lives. Someone criticizes them and they snap. Someone ignores them and they shrink. Someone outperforms them and they quit. They think life is attacking them, but it's not. Life is revealing them. Every emotional trigger is a mirror. It shows you what you still haven't mastered. When you start seeing triggers as teachers, your world shifts. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this showing me about myself? That's emotional maturity. That's how you evolve. Because emotions only control those who refuse to learn from them. You can either react like a victim or respond like a commander. The difference is awareness, and awareness is everything. Let's dive into how the body processes emotion, because most people try to fight it mentally. They try to think their way out of anger, anxiety, or fear. That doesn't work. Emotions are not logical, they're physiological. They live in the body, not just in the mind. Your body stores emotional memory. That's why certain smells, songs, or sights trigger deep reactions, because they're linked to stored experiences within your nervous system. When you ignore or suppress those signals, they don't disappear, they compound. And that stored tension becomes anxiety, fatigue, and sometimes disease. Science now confirms that emotional suppression contributes to chronic illness through increased inflammation and hormonal imbalance. You cannot heal what you refuse to feel. That's why mastering your emotions isn't just mental, it's physical. You have to move energy through your body. You breathe it, face it, release it. You confront it instead of running from it. Every time you do, your nervous system learns safety. You teach your body that intensity doesn't equal danger. And when your body feels safe, your mind becomes powerful. Now let's talk about a hidden trap, emotional identity. Most people don't just feel emotions, they become them. They say, I am angry, I am sad, I am anxious. That's not true. You are feeling anger. You are experiencing sadness. But you are not those emotions. The moment you label yourself as them, you fuse your identity with temporary chemistry. That's how people get stuck. You're not depressed. You're in a depressive state. You're not anxious. You're in an anxious cycle. Change the frame, and you reclaim the power. You can't master emotions while identifying with them. You must learn to observe them, like weather passing through the sky. The sky doesn't fight the storm. It allows it to move, and then it clears. You are the sky. Your emotions are the weather. Stop mistaking the storm for who you are. One of the greatest practices for emotional command is visualization. Not the kind of fantasy daydream visualization you hear about in self-help books. I'm talking about neurological rehearsal. The brain doesn't distinguish vividly imagined experience from real experience. When you visualize yourself handling stress calmly, your neural circuits fire as if you're actually doing it. That's how elite performers train under pressure without breaking. They rehearse composure until it becomes automatic. That's emotional muscle memory. You can do this daily. Before a tough conversation, before a presentation, before any high-stakes moment, close your eyes, breathe, and see yourself steady, calm, in command. You're rewiring your response before the world ever tests it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't want mastery. They want comfort. They don't want to command emotions. They want emotions to disappear. And that's the root of weakness. Comfort is emotional sedation. Every time you numb discomfort, you weaken your threshold for challenge. Soon, the smallest inconvenience feels unbearable. And that's exactly why our society is collapsing under emotional fragility. People can't handle discomfort anymore. But the paradox is this: growth requires discomfort. You can't evolve without tension. You can't strengthen your emotional muscles without stress. You don't become resilient by avoiding storms. You become resilient by learning how to stand in the rain without losing your balance. Let me remind you, emotional pain is not the enemy. It's the signal that your nervous system is rewiring for something greater. That's why breakthroughs are often preceded by breakdowns. The body and mind reorganize under pressure. Your emotions spike, your beliefs shake, and everything inside you screams, quit. But if you stay present, if you breathe through it instead of breaking, you emerge stronger, clearer, and more capable. That's not theory, that's biology. Stress creates adaptation. The nervous system evolves through challenge. Emotional control is the same process. It's built through exposure, not avoidance. Let's talk about relationships for a moment. Because emotional mastery is tested most in your interactions with others. You can meditate for an hour in silence and feel like a monk until someone cuts you off in traffic or your partner says something that hits your ego. That's when your practice is tested. Relationships are emotional mirrors. They expose every insecurity you try to hide. You can pretend you're composed until someone triggers your fear of rejection or inadequacy. And when that happens, your reaction reveals your true level of mastery. If you lash out, withdraw, manipulate, or justify, you're still being ruled by emotion. But when you pause, breathe, and respond with intention, you're free. Because emotional freedom is not the absence of triggers, it's the presence of control amidst them. When you master emotions in relationships, you become untouchable. You stop reacting to others' chaos. You become the calm in the storm. And that calm is power. It influences people more than any argument or display of dominance ever could. People trust those who can stay composed when things fall apart. That's why composure is currency. It's leadership, whether in business, family, or any team. The one who remains grounded controls the energy of the room. I've watched entire companies collapse because their leaders lost emotional control. Panic spread from the top down. Fear infected every decision. And I've seen the opposite, leaders who kept calm while everything around them burned. Those leaders not only survived, they grew because people rallied around their steadiness. In times of chaos, humans don't follow titles, they follow stability. You can't lead others until you lead your emotions. Now, what does it mean to lead your emotions? It means you decide what state you operate from intentionally. You don't wait to feel motivated. You generate the state you need. That's mastery. You want focus, straighten your spine, lift your chin, breathe deeper. Instantly, your biochemistry changes. You want confidence. Recall a moment of power. Relive it vividly until your body remembers it. This is not psychology. This is neurochemistry. Emotion follows motion. Change your physiology and your feelings follow. You've been programmed to think emotions are mysterious and uncontrollable. They're not. They're patterns of energy governed by habits of thought, breath, and posture. You can shift any emotional state in seconds if you take command of your body first. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this. During a resilience training with a special forces unit, I observed soldiers being subjected to extreme mental and physical stress. Cold exhaustion, sensory deprivation. Their goal was simple: to maintain focus while chaos erupted around them. One soldier, calm and composed, told me afterward, "The body screams, but the mind must decide." That line stuck with me, because that's the essence of mastery. Your body will always send emotional signals, but you decide what they mean. You decide what to do next. You decide whether that surge becomes panic or power. And that choice, that single second of awareness, separates the weak from the unstoppable. Mastering emotions is mastering meaning. Nothing has inherent meaning except the one you assign. Two people face the same setback. One breaks, the other builds. The difference is not circumstance, it's interpretation. You can look at rejection and say, "I'm not good enough." Or you can say, "Good, time to get sharper." One emotion destroys progress, the other creates it. You are the author of the emotional story you live by. Change the story, change your life. But make no mistake, this mastery doesn't come from books, quotes, or theories. It comes from relentless self-confrontation. It comes from sitting in silence and observing the chaos inside you until you're no longer afraid of it. It comes from watching yourself lose control, then asking why, not who to blame. It comes from taking full responsibility for your internal state, no matter what the world throws at you. That's what true strength looks like. It's not shouting, not aggression, not ego. It's composure. It's power under control. Every day, you will be tested. Life doesn't care how disciplined you were yesterday. It's going to throw you new storms, new challenges, new emotions. And in those moments, you'll have two choices: revert to your old patterns or rise into your training. The world rewards the latter. The people who win, in business, in relationships, in health, are not those who never feel emotion. They're the ones who feel it fully and still move forward, because they've built the internal stability to stand tall while everyone else is shaking. If you can learn to master emotions, you become unstoppable, because emotions drive every decision, every action, every habit. Master them, and you master life. Lose control of them, and you become a puppet to your own chemistry. You can't lead love or create from chaos. You can only destroy from it. And that's why the discipline of emotional mastery is the highest form of human power. So, I'll leave you with this truth. Your emotions were never meant to be your enemy. They were meant to be your evolution. The question is, will you rise above them or remain ruled by them? Because mastery isn't about never falling. It's about getting up faster every time emotion knocks you down. It's about breathing through the storm until you can see clearly again. It's about facing the fire inside you and realizing you are the one who decides whether it burns you or forges you. Because once you master your emotions, you master everything. There's one last truth that separates the emotionally strong from the emotionally weak. And it's this: emotional mastery isn't permanent. It's a lifelong practice. It's not a mountain you climb once, it's a terrain you walk every day. You don't arrive at mastery, you maintain it. Every single day you'll wake up and face the test again, because your emotions reset every morning. Your mind resets. The chemical balance in your body shifts with sleep, stress, diet, environment, and thought. That means you can't rely on yesterday's discipline to carry you through today. You have to rebuild it moment by moment, decision by decision. The emotionally intelligent know that mastery is maintenance. It's awareness in motion. It's the constant act of choosing your response over and over again until it becomes instinct. When pressure hits, you don't panic. When doubt creeps in, you don't freeze. You respond as the master, not the slave. And that response, that single moment of control, is what keeps your life aligned with your purpose. I remember working with a group of trauma survivors once. Soldiers who had seen war, parents who had lost children, professionals who had faced unimaginable crises. Every single one of them had something in common. They were forced to feel emotions most people spend their whole lives avoiding: grief, fear, helplessness. And yet, what separated those who rebuilt their lives from those who stayed stuck wasn't luck, therapy, or medication. It was meaning. The ones who found a reason to feel again, a reason to live, began to master their emotions through purpose. They didn't suppress their pain, they repurposed it. They turned their suffering into fuel. That's what mastery looks like, not denial, but direction. They learn that emotion becomes strength when it's aimed at something greater than itself. That's why purpose is the anchor of emotional mastery. Without purpose, you'll always be a slave to emotional tides. One day up, one day down. But when you have a mission, when your why is stronger than your feelings, you don't crumble when things get hard. You move anyway. Emotion becomes background noise, not the main story. That's how high performers operate. They feel everything, but they don't obey everything. They channel it all toward one target: execution. This is where the truth becomes uncomfortable. Emotional mastery demands responsibility. You can't blame anyone else for how you feel. You can't point fingers at your parents, your boss, your partner, or the world. The moment you do, you give away your power. Responsibility means saying, I am the creator of my state. Even if someone wrongs you, even if life crushes you, you still decide how to interpret it. That's power. That's freedom. But people fear that kind of freedom because it eliminates excuses. Once you accept responsibility for your emotions, you can't hide behind blame anymore. You can't say, he made me angry, or she ruined my peace. No. You gave them access to your internal world. You handed them the remote control to your state. Take it back. No one deserves that power but you. And once you reclaim it, life starts to open up in ways you never imagined. You begin to move through chaos with grace. You stop reacting to small things. You stop internalizing nonsense. You stop fighting every battle that doesn't matter. You conserve your energy for the things that do. That's emotional wealth. The ability to remain steady when others fall apart, to protect your peace like a sacred fortress, to stay composed even when life is anything but calm. When you reach that point, you've not only mastered your emotions, you've mastered your existence. But let me be clear, this isn't perfection. You'll still stumble. You'll still lose your temper, still feel doubt, still break down sometimes. You're human. Mastery doesn't erase humanity, it refines it. What changes is how fast you recover. Emotional masters don't stay down. They catch themselves quicker. They use every setback as feedback. Every time they fall, they rise sharper, wiser, and calmer. They know emotion is energy, and energy, when harnessed, can build anything. One of the most fascinating things neuroscience has uncovered in the last decade is that your brain actually rewires based on the emotional quality of your thoughts. Sustained emotions, positive or negative, change the structure of your brain. They either expand your capacity for resilience or shrink it. Chronic anger shrinks the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning. Chronic gratitude expands it. Chronic fear strengthens the amygdala, the fear center, making you hyperreactive to stress. Chronic calm rewires it to be less sensitive. So when we talk about mastering emotions, we're literally talking about reshaping your brain. You're not just changing your mindset, you're changing your biology. And the implications of that are profound. Because if you can rewire your brain through emotional discipline, you can literally change your destiny. That's not some motivational slogan. That's neuroplasticity in real time. Your emotions sculpt your neural architecture, which means every time you choose composure over chaos, you're physically reshaping your brain to favor strength over weakness, clarity over confusion, discipline over despair. Now, imagine what would happen if an entire generation learned this. Imagine a world where people didn't react to every insult, every disappointment, every obstacle with outrage or despair, but instead with curiosity, focus, and resolve. Imagine leaders who could think clearly under pressure. Parents who taught their children to feel deeply, but not drown in those feelings. Societies built not on emotional fragility, but on emotional fitness. That's the world emotional mastery creates, one person at a time. And it starts with you. Every time you feel an emotion rise, you have a choice. You can let it control you, or you can control it. You can collapse, or you can command. You can feed the storm, or you can quiet it. That's where power lives, in the moment of awareness before reaction. The more you strengthen that gap, the more powerful you become. That gap is where growth, leadership, and legacy are born. So when life tests you, and it will, remember this emotion is temporary, but consequences are not. One impulsive decision can destroy years of progress. One undisciplined reaction can ruin trust, careers, or relationships. You must be the guardian of your emotions, not their prisoner. The world will always provoke you. That's a guarantee. What's not guaranteed is your reaction. That's your art. That's your science. That's your legacy. And if there's one message I want you to walk away with today, it's this: your emotions are not the problem. Your lack of training is. Train them, and they'll serve you. Neglect them, and they'll sabotage you. You can't control the world, but you can control your inner world. And that control is the foundation of every empire ever built, not made of money, but of mind. So when the next wave of fear hits you, when anger surges, when uncertainty creeps in, stop, breathe. Remember who's in command. You are not your emotions. You are the one who directs them. You are the architect, the conductor, the commander of your own state. You can turn fear into precision. You can turn pain into purpose. You can turn chaos into clarity. Because emotions are nothing more than raw energy. And energy, when mastered, builds empires. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence of emotional mastery. It's not suppression. It's not denial. It's direction. It's standing tall in the storm and realizing that no matter how fierce the wind blows, you are the one holding the wheel. And as long as you steer with awareness, discipline, and purpose, no storm can ever sink you. So go out there and live as a master, not of the world, but of yourself. Because once you master your emotions, you've already won.